All right, let's unpack this. Today, we're diving into a book that, well, it's really rewired financial thinking for millions, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert T. Kiyosaki. Our deep dive today is based on a really comprehensive review, originally in Marathi, actually, that distills the very essence of this, super influential work. Our mission, pretty simple: pull out the most impactful ideas, the surprising insights, and help you grasp what this book truly means for your own financial journey. So get ready to maybe challenge some beliefs, because we're about to explore the profound differences in what rich people teach their kids about money, lessons often just missed by the poor and middle class. So this book, published back in 1997, it's about, well, 207 pages. It's firmly in personal finance, maybe motivational genres too. And at its heart, the author, Robert Kiyosaki, he introduces us to his two dads. Well, not literally two dads, but two key figures. One he calls Poor Dad and the other Rich Dad.
Yeah. And what's really fascinating there is the contrast, right? The poor dad was, highly educated, PhD, stable government job, but always seemed to struggle with money. Then you have the rich dad, much less formal education, but a really successful businessman with this deep, almost intuitive grasp of investing. Kiyosaki uses these two sort of polar opposite mindsets to draw out his most important lessons about money. It gives you a really powerful perspective on wealth right from the start. That storytelling approach, I think, is what really hooks people in.
That dynamic, yeah, it's absolutely central. So, okay, let's talk about these core ideas. What are the absolute crucial lessons Rich Dad, Poor Dad wants us to take away?
Well, one of the first big ones, and maybe one of the most provocative, is the importance of financial education. Kiyosaki basically asks, why does school teach us how to earn money, get a job, get a salary, but not how to grow it or manage it? The book really argues that financial freedom isn't just about how much you earn. It's about investing, acquiring assets, making your money generate more money for you.
Sure.
Not just trading your time for a paycheck. It's a fundamental shift from just being a consumer to being an investor.
And building right on that, here's where it gets really interesting and honestly kind of revolutionary for a lot of readers. Assets versus liabilities. The book makes this really stark distinction. Kiyosaki says basically, rich people buy assets. Poor and middle-class people often buy liabilities, but they think they're assets. The classic example he gives is your own home. If it doesn't put money in your pocket, the book provocatively suggests it's actually a liability, not an asset.
Oh yeah, that point about the home definitely stirred things up. It really challenged the American dream idea that your house is your biggest asset. But the insight isn't just the label, right? It's about understanding the cash flow. That's the key. He forces you to look past a price tag and ask, does this put money in my pocket or take money out? Simple as that. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, it's about shifting your focus away from just earning a salary towards acquiring knowledge and skills that actually build wealth. The book really emphasizes practical skills, things like sales, investing know-how, communication, leadership. These are way more valuable long-term, he argues, than just a fancy job title.
That's a really powerful point about skills, yeah. Thinking about value beyond just the paycheck. Speaking of paychecks, the book also tackles what he calls the rat race. What exactly is that, and how does he say we can break free?
The rat race. It's that common cycle, right? Where most people work really hard just to pay the bills, survive till the next paycheck, maybe buy a few nice things, but they're stuck in this loop of earning and spending without ever building real, lasting wealth. It's basically chasing security through a job alone. And the book's answer: the way out. It's about consistently building assets that generate income regularly. These assets then work for you, eventually freeing you up so you don't have to trade your time for money anymore.
And a big part of getting out of that race seems to be changing your internal dialogue, changing how you think, right?
Yeah.
The book talks a lot about mindset.
Oh, absolutely. That's fundamental. He highlights this huge difference in thinking. The rich dad, when faced with something he wants but can't immediately buy, asks, how can I afford this? It opens up possibilities, focuses on solutions. The poor dad, on the other hand, his default is, I can't afford this, which, just shuts down thinking. End of story. And Kiyosaki argues that this subtle difference, this way of framing things in your head, is like the cornerstone. It shapes your entire financial future. It's all about cultivating a mindset of, abundance and possibility instead of scarcity and limitation.
So it's not just words, it's the questions you ask yourself. And it also pushes us beyond just having a job.
Exactly. Instead of only relying on your job, which Kiyosaki kind of sees as, just trading time for dollars, the book really encourages you to learn about starting your own business or actively investing. When he talks about creating your own financial vehicles, he means things beyond just stocks. Maybe real estate that pays rent, or owning a small business, or even intellectual property like royalties. Basically, anything that can generate income passively without you having to constantly work at it.
That makes sense. Moving from employee to owner, essentially. And finally, it also touches on some, well, very human stuff, doesn't it? Fear and greed.
Yes, definitely. He dives into the emotional side, fear and greed, and how powerfully they can mess with our financial decisions. Fear, for instance, can stop people cold, make them too scared to invest or take a calculated risk. Greed, on the other hand, can make people irrational, chase unrealistic returns, fall for get-rich-quick schemes. Kiyosaki's point is that you have to understand and, crucially, manage these emotions. Make rational, long-term choices, not just react based on fear or greed.
Well, like any book that shakes things up, it's got its fans and its critics. And our review highlights both the strengths and, yeah, some common criticisms of Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Right. On the plus side, it's widely praised for making complex economic ideas seem simple. Really accessible language. It's super motivational, too. Offers this really fresh, almost rebellious take on financial freedom. And the lessons, because they're wrapped in these personal stories, they tend to stick with you more than, say, a dry textbook would.
But as you'd expect, critics have things to say too. A big one is the lack of, like, specific how-to steps. It gives you the direction, the what, but not always the clear how. Some people feel aspects are oversimplified, maybe exaggerated a bit for effect. And then there's that ongoing debate, right? Was Rich Dad a real person or more of a composite character? Plus, some critics point to a lack of diverse, practical examples beyond Kiyosaki's own story, which can make parts feel a bit abstract, maybe even fictionalized to some. That's an interesting point about the Rich Dad possibly being a composite, but like you said, the power seems to be in the lessons themselves, real or not. So given all that, the praise, the criticism, who really gets the most out of reading this? Who is it really for? That's a good question. Who benefits most from this kind of, well, mindset shifting approach? Our review suggests it's particularly good for, say, students, beginners who are just starting to think about money. Also, anyone maybe facing financial struggles and feeling kind of trapped. People who feel overly dependent on their job and want a way out. And of course, anyone just curious about business and investing who needs that initial spark, that inspiration.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway for you listening?
The final conclusion from our review is that Rich Dad, Poor Dad is really about planting the idea of financial freedom. It's seen much more as an inspirational guide, a catalyst for thinking differently, rather than a technical manual you follow step by step.
Exactly. It's brilliant for sparking that change in mindset. It got a strong 4.3 out of 5 rating for being inspiring, easy to grasp, and offering a genuinely new perspective. But, and this is important for the actual nuts and bolts of financial planning, you absolutely need to look elsewhere. Read more specific books, maybe get professional advice. Kiyosaki kind of opens the door, but he doesn't furnish the whole house, if that makes sense.
That's a great way to put it, opens the door. So thinking about that, if the core idea is getting assets that generate income and shifting your mindset, what's maybe one concrete thing you could think about today to move from just being inspired to taking a small, practical step?
Maybe pick one of those Rich Dad lessons that really hit home for you just now. Was it the asset versus liability thing? If so, maybe just mentally review something you own. Could be your car, could be something else. Ask yourself honestly, does this put money in my pocket or take it out? The goal isn't necessarily to sell everything you own. It's just to start understanding the cash flow impact of your choices. That awareness is the first step.
Exactly. It's a journey, right? Financial literacy.